Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing my roughly 1 season review on Harbor Freight's Central Machinery 5-ton electric log splitter. Real quick before we get into the review, go down, make sure you click subscribe if you're not a subscriber already to get more firewood and homesteading related content. And if you find that you're enjoying this review as you go throughout the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithms. Also, leave a comment below letting me know if you have this log splitter and what your experience has been with it. I'm always interested to get little short reviews in the comments from other people on the tools and things that I review. So, I've been using this log splitter, I say roughly for about a season, because I probably split and ran through our first probably cord by hand until I got this thing about in December. I pretty much used this thing mostly exclusively to split the firewood that heats our home and has been heating our home pretty much since, like I said, December. So it's the middle of March and it's probably hovering right around freezing right now at what, 6 o'clock in the evening. So down at the bottom end of the easiest woods I've used to split this thing with is Doug fir, ponderosa pine, and aspen. Then getting in the middle is some pinon pine and some shaggy bark juniper. Those firewoods have been split with this thing. And then on the really difficult end, if not the most difficult wood I know of in the United States, maybe, you know, there's like hedge apple or something that's supposed to be a real hard wood. We don't have it anywhere around here. But elmwood. Elmwood is extremely difficult to split. I've split a little bit of American elm with it, and even more difficult than that is some Siberian elm. That just gives you an idea of some of the firewoods that I've split with it. Let me say this. I don't think I've had any issues with the bottom three, being Doug fir, ponderosa, and aspen. All three of those firewoods have split pretty much trouble-free with this thing. No issues. And then moving up to the middle, I do think that I've had a couple of very, very large shaggy bark juniper, or also known as Utah juniper trees, and maybe one piece of pinon pine that didn't want to split because it was a very knotted up, twisted piece of wood. And then up at the Siberian elm, this has split a lot of Siberian elm. Siberian elm is very hard to split by hand. Now, I made a video when I first got this thing trying to kind of figure out its limitations, and technically in that first video I did not find any of its limitations. That being said, now that I've got a lot more firewood through it, I've definitely had quite a few pieces of wood that it wouldn't split. But I'm telling you, it's all the Siberian elm wood, and they're all, you know, like probably 8 inches in diameter or larger. So some of the, you know, they'll split some of the 8 to 10 inch in diameter Siberian elm logs, but it struggles with really anything much bigger than that. And it still has split some of those just fine too. So I'm not sure what the reason was that it was splitting them so easy in the first video that I made on this thing. I don't know if it's just because it was brand new and had a perfectly sharp blade, which I've done a pretty good job of keeping this thing sharp. This is all to say that it is definitely split almost everything I've thrown at it, with some exceptions. And those exceptions are things that I wouldn't expect it to be able to split anyway. That should just give you hopefully some idea. I know I've kind of been blabbing for a little bit, but hopefully it gives you some idea of what this thing's actually capable of splitting. It's done fantastic. I've been very impressed with what it has been able to split over time. So let's go over some of the components here individually. Just to talk about this one real briefly, this handle broke off because, as Harbor Freight tells you in the instructions, to remove that handle before standing it up or before moving it so that it does not break. I think it is designed to break because instead of breaking the, you know, this piece of cast aluminum, I believe it is, it might be cast steel, that opens up your valve to run your hydraulics. Instead of busting that apart, you just break this cheap little handle off. I've actually already broke it once. I ran a little weld bead around it and broke it again. I actually broke it pulling it into the shop tonight to do this review on it. Very annoying. So I just stuck this little bolt in there, I guess just to see if it would work. but I'm probably going to try and weld that piece on and repair it real quick. But I think it's better that this little handle breaks than breaking something inside of here and having to try to figure something else out. So do know that if you get this thing, remove that handle before you move it. Let's talk real briefly about the splitting wedge. No issues here whatsoever. I have taken an angle grinder to it to try and sharpen it up a couple of times. It's still pretty sharp. I would say that it maintains its sharpness pretty well. I'm not sure if they use some better, higher grade piece of steel on here. I've seen log splitters with the splitting wedge, all kinds of wore out, and this one's holding up pretty well as far as I can tell. So I'd probably just keep an eye on it and just make sure that you maintain that edge, because as it kind of mushrooms out more and more, the harder it will probably be to bring that edge back. And you can probably do it just simply with an angle grinder. There's maybe a couple little chips in the metal, but it's held up pretty good over, you know, this season of Firewood. These side rails, real quick, just make sure when you pull it out of the box, and because I do believe that these side rails come on from the factory out of the box, make sure you tighten those up. Maybe even throw a little bit of blue Loctite on them just to keep them secure to the log splitter itself, because I have had to go through and tighten them up once before. This switch here, been working fine. I think I'm going to eventually do the foot switch mod so that I don't have to keep holding this with one hand. I'm sure it's some kind of safety feature, and I'm not necessarily recommending that you do that modification, but I would like to modify the do the foot switch modification on this thing. So that's been holding up fine. This electric motor, you know, it's definitely seen some dirt and some rain. I had left it pretty much outside, just in the elements for the last few months, which isn't something I particularly like to do, but it is pretty heavy and is a little bit difficult to move around. And so it's not super easy to just haul inside. It does take a little bit of effort and work, and I've gotten a little bit lazy about bringing it inside, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I've seen how well it's stood up to the weather. Now, has this thing been out for years and years in the elements? No, it hasn't, but I do think it's held up pretty well for the snow and rain and wind and dirt that it's seen. So I'd say all in all, I'd give it, I don't know, 4.5 out of 5 stars probably. It's a pretty good log splitter. Glad to have it at $329. I think it's pretty hard to beat. I do think for a little bit more money, you can go online and purchase some different models that are similar to this, that have some nice features. One of those features being that you can set how far back the ram goes. So the ram, you know, you can stop it, you know, if you're splitting real short pieces, which a lot of those Siberian elm pieces I have them a little bit shorter, so you don't have to start from so far back every single time. They have a way to set it to where, you know, it'll stop back here somewhere instead of coming all the way back. Now, this may have that feature, but I'm pretty sure I looked all over the instructions and I've looked everywhere on the log splitter itself and haven't found that feature. I've also seen some like 6 ton or 7 tons, and I'm not sure if that's just nothing more than marketing, and it's the exact same motor, hydraulic pump and everything, and they were just throwing an extra ton on there with really no basis for it. You're not getting any more power. But it'd be nice to see maybe if Harbor Freight kind of tiered one of these things and had, if they actually have, you know, 6 ton or 7 ton log splitters, you know, offer like a 6 ton log splitter, maybe with that feature where you can set the depth that the ram goes back. Seems like I saw a couple of other features. Another thing that Harbor Freight ought to sell with this thing is a little stand that you can set it up on, so you don't have to bend over or get down on your knees to use the log splitter. So they should think about coming up with something like that to sell, you know, more money, easy money for them. And yeah, you know, a few suggestions, things that could probably be improved a little bit. And honestly, as the model sits itself, it's great. The paint's been holding up surprisingly well, and it's just been a good log splitter all the way around. So I'm pretty darn happy with it. And remember, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button to get more wood cutting content and homesteading related content like this. And don't forget to leave a comment letting me know your experience with this log splitter or something like it if you have one. I'd be curious to know what your experience has been like. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.